What is philosophy? That is certainly a difficult question. You might think that there's a relatively intuitive answer to that question. Lots of different things can be understood as philosophy. But what is it that philosophers do? An example that I like to give is my daughter. When she was about 4 or 5 years old, one night when I had a bunch of friends over studying for a philosophy exam, she was really upset because she had to go to bed. And she said to me, "Daddy, I know what philosophy is. Philosophy is just when you and your friends get together and talk about stuff." Interestingly, she was really kind of onto something. Philosophy really is this active engagement in discussing things and asking questions. So in that sense, even a 4-year-old kind of has an intuitive grasp of what philosophy is. Yet at the same point, there's got to be something deeper to it, right? We tend to think that philosophy involves asking the big questions, sort of the profound questions about our existence and what is the meaning of life, what's the nature of reality and the structure of the fundamental features of reality. Why should we be a good person versus a bad person? Why are we here at all? Who are we? What is our relation to the natural world around us? What's our relation to other human beings and non-human animals? These sort of really big, deep questions we oftentimes associate with the general question of what is philosophy. And I think that there's something definitely right about that. Yet at the same time, we might also want to think that philosophy is something a little different too. Philosophy is an activity that we do. In the same way that my daughter, at the age of 4, had the suspicion that philosophy is just when you and your friends get together and talk. Philosophy really is an active asking of questions. So on the one hand, a lot of disciplines do this. A lot of disciplines engage in this kind of inquiry of asking questions. But we might think that philosophy is actively working out a better way of thinking about things. What is the best way to consider a particular discipline, whether that be physics or biology or chemistry or economics or what have you. So one way in which we can think about the answer to, or at least one answer to the question, what is philosophy, is to suggest something along the lines of actively doing the project of stepping back from whatever particular inquiry we're interested in and asking the question of what is the best way to think about the inquiry that we're pursuing. So for example, if we're doing physics, we might think that we need to step back and get sort of a 30,000 feet vantage point of the field we're interested in and try to understand what sort of principles or features of a theory would be ones that we would want the theory to have, if it's a good theory, if it's a good explanation of some phenomenon we're studying. So we might consider things like the sort of scientific virtues of elegance or simplicity, or to what extent is the theory best capable of making sense of the data available. These sort of questions we might pose when we're stepping back and thinking about what is the best way to think about a particular issue. There's another way in which we can consider the definition of philosophy, or what is it that philosophers do when we step back and think about what is the best way to think about things. We might think that philosophy, generally speaking, is kind of a systematic study of the nature of reality and our place in it and our relation to other human beings and non-human animals, right? In this sense, it really is kind of like an abstract science. So while science, as we typically understand it, it's kind of a very rigidified sense of inquiry. We're supposed to get some very definite answers, something we can really put our hands on and grasp a hold of. While philosophy is kind of always moving around. We're never really quite sure of what exactly the right answer is. And as soon as we do get the right answer to something, or at least we take ourselves to have done that, then it grows into its own scientific field like physics or economics or biology or medicine. Philosophy, on the other hand, is sort of defined really by this sense of uncertainty. But that doesn't mean that there's no definite answers in philosophy. It's just a much more abstract way of thinking about the natural world around us and our relation to it. It is a systematic inquiry, but a much more abstract one. And so in that sense, that's why we really do kind of think about it as an actively engaging and asking questions, discussing the different ways in which we're thinking about things and what might be the best way to think about things. Now, in this class, we're definitely not going to try to tell you what you should think, but we are going to try to get you to think about what would be the right way to think. What is a better way to approach a question or an issue? So in the next few videos, we're going to talk about some of the different philosophical methods But this is at least just to get our feet wet with regard to the question, what is philosophy?